In recent years, we have been able to observe something strange happening on Uranus. From time to time, bright clouds appear in its upper atmosphere and reflect so much light that they can be seen from Earth. Some of these clouds only last for days or weeks before dissipating into the planet's frigid blackness, but others stick around for months, and scientists are still struggling to figure out what they are made of and what causes them to appear and disappear so suddenly. Bright, reflective clouds are not unique to Earth. In our own atmosphere, high-altitude cirrus clouds can reflect sunlight and create beautiful halos around the sun and moon. But the clouds on Uranus are different. They're bigger, brighter, and more mysterious. These clouds were first spotted in 1986 by Voyager 2, which flew by the sideways planet and sent back the first beautiful views of its atmosphere. Since then, planetary scientists have been eagerly anticipating the return of these bright spots so that they could study them in detail. They didn't have to wait long. In 1993, the Hubble Space Telescope began regularly observing Uranus and its rings. And in 1994, it witnessed one of those bright cloud events. At the time, researchers were excited just to be able to observe the event at all, let alone capture an image of it. And while the photo was spectacular, it wasn't super helpful when it came to figuring out what the clouds were made of. That's because even though Uranus has been visible to the naked eye since ancient times, we don't actually know what it's chemically. We do know that it has an atmosphere composed mostly of hydrogen and helium, like Jupiter and Neptune. But because it's so far away, studying its atmosphere is difficult. And so there are a lot of things we don't know about it. We also know that Uranus has a very thin oxygen layer in its atmosphere. And based on the fact that we can see these clouds reflecting light, they must be made of something that is highly reflective and good at bouncing light away, like ice crystals. But beyond that, the exact composition of these clouds remains unknown. One popular theory is that they're made of methane ice crystals. Methane is abundant in Uranus' atmosphere, and it could condense into ice crystals under certain conditions. If this were true, we should be able to detect some absorption lines in the light that passes through these clouds. Unfortunately, observations haven't turned up any solid evidence of methane or any other particular chemical in the clouds, so we're still looking for an answer. What we do know is that these clouds form high above Uranus' flat, icy rings. The swings in altitude between the tops of the clouds and the bottoms of the rings can be as great as 500 kilometers or 300 miles. Also, the clouds never seem to reach the rings themselves, which rules out some potential causes. For instance, if the clouds were caused by the rings releasing gas or dust into the atmosphere, we would expect them to eventually make contact with the rings. But perhaps the biggest piece of evidence against the ring theory is that the clouds don't seem to follow the rings. They appear and disappear in random places, moving independently of the rings, which always stay in the same position relative to the planet. And while we've been unable to determine exactly what these clouds are made of, we've learned a lot about the conditions that cause them to appear. For starters, they seem to pop up during Uranus summer. Our sun is nearly 2 billion kilometers, or 1.2 billion miles away from Uranus, meaning that it takes 80 for Earth years for Uranus to orbit once around the sun. Because of the tilt of its axis, about 90 degrees relative to the sun, half of each orbit takes Uranus into summer and half into winter. And it turns out that the temperature swings that occur during the summer may play a role in creating these mysterious clouds. According to scientists, the bright clouds only appear in Uranus' northern hemisphere when temperatures rise above 70 degrees Celsius or 160 degrees Fahrenheit. They tend to emerge after a particularly cold winter, possibly when rising temperatures cause gases in the atmosphere to expand and form aerosols or tiny solid particles suspended in a gas. Then, when the sun reaches its highest point in the sky, the clouds reflect its light and become visible. But why do they disappear after a couple of weeks or months? Researchers have a few ideas. One is that the clouds simply evaporate as temperatures drop again in the waning days of summer. Another possibility is that winds blow them away. Scientists think that the winds on Uranus' upper atmosphere can reach speeds of 900 kilometers per hour or 560 miles per hour, which could explain why some clouds disappear so quickly. It's also possible that the clouds are destroyed by powerful thunderstorms, which have been known to occur on Uranus. If these storms come into contact with the bright clouds, they could cause them to dissipate or mix with other chemicals in the atmosphere. Sadly, it seems that most of these bright clouds are too far north to be seen by Hubble, which is located just south of the planet's equator. So they've only captured a small number of images of these rare events. Fortunately, scientists have another opportunity to study them up close. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory designed the Imaging X-ray Polarimetry Explorer, or IXPE, to study the extreme ultraviolet and X-ray emissions of celestial objects. When the mission launched in December of 2021, scientists hoped that the spacecraft would be able to capture one of Uranus' bright cloud events. They didn't have to wait long. In April of 2022, just 4 months after launch, IXPE detected an unexpected bright spot near Uranus's North Pole. The object was roughly the size of Texas and 10 times brighter than expected. It was only visible for about 3 weeks before it disappeared. Because the spacecraft doesn't orbit Earth, it can spend extended periods of time focused on one part of the sky. And scientists hope that it will be able to catch several bright cloud events over the course of its mission. Unfortunately, the spacecraft doesn't have any cameras. Its 51-megapixel detectors can only see in 2 colors, X-ray and extreme ultraviolet. So we won't be getting any beautiful photos anytime soon. But they should be able to capture data that helps us better understand the composition and behavior of these clouds. In the meantime, Hubble is continuing to capture beautiful views of Uranus and its rings. On April 11, 2022, it took this image of a ring and a faint, possibly translucent cloud that's interacting with it. While this isn't one of the bright clouds that scientists are eager to study, it's a great reminder of just how dynamic and beautiful the planet's atmosphere can be. Of course, if we had better technology, we would be able to see so much more. If you want to learn more about some amazing scientific instruments in development, check out our video on the James Webb Space Telescope. It's sure to get you excited about the future of space exploration. Thanks for watching.